joining us for another episode of Mid-American Gardener. I'm your host, Tanisha Spain, and joining me today are two of our expert panelists who are ready to answer your questions and show you a little bit more about what's going on in their backyard and in their garden. So let's have them introduce themselves and tell you a little bit more about their specialty and where you can find them outside. So we'll start with you, John.
Okay, I'm John Bodensteiner. I am a Vermilion County Master Gardener. I live up by Bismarck, Illinois, just north of Danville. I live out in the country, and I've got about 3 acres here, and I enjoy, if I can grow it here, I enjoy it. Right now, I'm harvesting fruit, and I will talk a little bit more about that here in just a few minutes.
Fantastic. Okay, Ella, you're up.
I'm Ella Maxwell. I'm a horticulturist at a area nursery in Peoria, Illinois. I live in Washington, and I'm a Tazewell County Master Gardener. And I am also have a large property like John, and going to talk about some fruits. I like perennials as well, and I think we've got some great questions and show and tells.
Fabulous. All right, that leads right into the show and tells. So, John, we'll go back to you, and
Okay.
you brought a few things to share. So, what's your first item?
Okay, the first thing I'm going to talk about is a fruit that is in the United States the largest native fruit on a tree that grows in America. It is the pawpaw. And I just wanted to show, a lot of people are not familiar with it. You need 2 different trees to get fruit. And we'll talk a little bit more about how to get trees. This is the fruit. And as you can see, people ask me, what does it taste like? And I say it's kind of between a banana and a pawpaw. And I'm hoping that this hasn't, that they do discolor, they turn brown like bananas and apples and things like that. So I cut this open here just a little while ago. No, it's still nice and yellow. And you can see it's got large seeds, but the fruit is, right now the fruit is ripening. They're falling. I have a bunch of it falling right now. It's kind of a different looking tree.
So when they fall, John, does that mean that they're ripe and ready to eat? You don't want to pull
and,
them
and
off the
usually,
tree. You want
yeah, I usually go pick them off the tree.
off the tree. Okay.
This is one of the bunches of, this has got 5 different pawpaws on it. And this is the way it hangs just like this. And you can see, this is my hand. You can see the leaves are very, very, if I can get them to cooperate here, you can see the leaves are very, very large and shiny. And normally they're a little bit shinier. This has got a little bit of black spot on it because of all the funguses and things that we're getting this year. But you can see it's a very, it's pyramidal shaped tree. So it kind of swoops up, and they put out suckers. And as long as you leave the suckers attached to the mother plant, they will produce fruit. As soon as you try to transplant one of those baby pawpaws, we'll call them, they will not produce fruit anymore.
Interesting.
So a lot of people want to get the fruit or the tree, so they'll just take, because there's, if you know the saying, down in the pawpaw patch there's a song. And
way down
a lot of people,
yonder in the pawpaw patch or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people will dig up, because there's so many, they're actually almost invasive in a small area. They'll try to pick one up and transplant it. And they'll wonder, because it takes about 4 or 5 years before you get your first pawpaw. Once you get it established, you can buy pawpaws. And again, you need 2 different trees from 2 different seeds. The only way you're ever going to get pawpaws is from a seed. Now, the problem with the seeds, they are quite large, and I will see if I can just dig one out here.
So is the fleshy? Do you eat the fruit with a spoon? Do you bite it out of
Yes,
the
I,
just like that? In it goes.
but I did that just to show you the size of the seed. You can see how big the seed is.
Oh yeah, that is a large seed.
Now, the problem with this seed is you can't just pick it and then put it in a jar and wait till you're ready to plant it. You have to keep it moist. They have to be fresh. And so what I usually do is put them in some moist peat moss, put them in the refrigerator because they have to be um, stratified.
Stratified.
Hmm.
And after a while, you keep it, you just put them in there, and pretty soon you'll see the root coming out. They'll put out a root.
Hmm.
And then you plant them, and then they'll put up the stem. But if you
So
let
it's a
that,
process.
yeah, if you let it dry out, you will never have them. Again, you need two different seeds. A lot of people say you need two different, you need a male and a female. That's really not true. They have both sexes on the tree. They're self-pollinating, but they do better if you cross-pollinate. Well, I guess I shouldn't say they're self-pollinated because you need two different ones. So and the flowers are kind of like a brown little tulip. They're the size of a nickel,
Hmm. Okay.
and they're brown in color. And the scent that um, their scent is considered to be like rotting meat.
Oh, one of those, huh?
So it's a fly that really is the pollinator.
Hmm. Interesting. Very cool.
And after, and to me they don't smell. I've brought it right up to my nose and tried to smell that rotting meat scent, and I have never been able to do it. But
Can't pick it up, huh?
you can use this kind of like a persimmon. Take the pulp out, get the seeds out, and then they make wonderful pawpaw bread or pawpaw cookies. You can use a persimmon recipe or any soft, like even like a banana bread
Excellent.
recipe. And I
Thanks,
think
John.
they're delicious. I like to eat them just off the tree or off the ground when they fall.
I'll have to try to
Well,
get my hands on one of those.
I,
Go
I
ahead, Ella.
want you to know that I never get any pawpaws because the raccoons get them
Oh yeah,
first.
that is a problem. The squirrels and the raccoons. I find in my bushes on the sides, I try to get as many as I can. But in the following spring, when I'm cleaning up and under a shrub or something, I will find stacks of these big seeds because they don't deteriorate very, very quickly because they're so big.
All right. Thank you, John. All right, Ella, we're going to go to you with your first show and tell item.
Okay, well, I also am showing fruit, but my fruit is not, uh, well, it's not delicious at the moment. So the first thing I want to show is bur oak acorns. So I have some bur oak acorns, and they have um, like a little fringe around. But this year, for my one oak tree that's out by the road in my driveway, I have never had so many acorns dropping as I am now. And then we're driving over them and they're, exploding. And I think there's just been a very heavy fruit set. And they do say sometimes that when you get a heavy fruit set like that, we're going to have a severe winter. And I've heard that we're supposedly having 3 severe cold events or something. So I don't know. But some people would consider the acorn probably messy and maybe not desirable, especially if it's growing over your house and you have it raining acorns, which I can be outside right now and just hear the acorns falling. So again, so unusual that this year I've had so many, but I do believe just like some apple trees and other fruit trees, they kind of alternately bear. And this year I am on track with black walnuts dropping. Now they're even bigger, and you can see that they kind of went splat. So I've got kind of a flat end. And of course, they have a husk. And then inside the husk is the nut. And so you have to, you would have to clean that off to then have the nut to crack. It's lots of work. And the other thing that's interesting in commercially grown walnuts, like English walnuts, it's very important that they control an insect called a husk maggot. But inside here, there's just oodles
Oh
of
my gosh.
little white worms.
I
So
see.
they're degrading this. The other thing about walnuts is that they are a natural form of kind of a brown colored. They can stain your fingers. They can stain your driveway. Whatever else. So you can harvest black walnuts. You can shell them. The squirrels love them, take them, move them everywhere. Walnuts will germinate pretty easily, maybe more so than the pawpaws, but they do require a cold treatment. So that's what they're going to get outside in the ground over the winter. So some interesting fruit that we're seeing today.
Excellent. Thank you, Ella. Okay, we're going to go back to John for another show and tell.
Okay, the next one I'm going to show, this is not a fruit, this is a weed. This is Palmer amaranth, and it's gotten a little wilty, but you can see all those little cones on right off the stem.
Mm-hmm.
There's one plant like this can have thousands of seeds, and these seeds are viable for up to 20 years. To me, this is probably my number one pest right now in my yard as far as weeds go. And so what I am asked, right now I'm out, and they come up late. They're not a April or May emerging weed. They're usually early June or late May. And so you think you've got all the weeds out of your yard. I have them still sprouting. They must have a warm temperature.
Are they aggressive, John?
Yes, they're very, I've got them the first years I didn't know I don't know how they came into my yard, but
John, just for a correction, I believe that's really what they call mulberry weed. Palmer amaranth is a little bit different. It has a terminal spike. Just for reference, we can check it out.
Yeah, that's what I was told. This was Palmer amaranth. So
I think they call it mulberry weed, but he's
weed.
right. It's a late season annual. It's everywhere. I have it in my garden as well, and it has fruit all along the stem. And and we didn't see it a number of years ago. It's probably a kind of new weed that I think we've talked about in the past.
University of Illinois has or even the Farmers Union has said that that this is the weed of the future, the scourge of Illinois or central U.S., mid-America, because it spreads so bad. You can have hundreds and hundreds in a square yard of soil.
So how do you control yours, John?
I just pull it. I am. I'll go in and with my weed eater, if I have a big patch, I'll just weed eat it to the ground and before it sets seed, because otherwise those seeds a lot of times will mature. If you just pull this and throw this on the ground, there's probably enough nutrients in this stem for these seeds to mature And so I usually burn mine or put them in a plastic bag. I just go around anytime I see it. Now is a good time, not only for this weed, but any weed. Right now, I'm going around my yard because it's amazing how big weeds can get in a week. And you go by it 20 times and not see it. And the next time, there it is in all its glory and thousands of seeds. And if you let it go to seed, then you're in trouble for the next, then you're going to be weeding for many, many years. So it's one of those things that you want to get rid of. So go around your yard, look for something that you don't want. There's even a couple of my flowers that I don't want everywhere in my yard. And so I'll deadhead those now. I'll let them go to, I'll let them flower. I'll let them flower, but as soon as they're done, get those seeds out of there. Northern sea oats is beautiful. I love it. It's one of the grasses, and it kind of looks, I don't know, it has a, what would you call it, Ella?
It's known for its seed head that looks, it's oat grass. It has a panicle that cascades and it just catches the wind. It's really attractive, but John's right. It's a very tenacious, and once it's rooted in, it's very difficult to pull. And I agree with John. Now's the time to be cutting that back to try to keep it from reseeding, and then also maybe digging some out to make it not so of a monoculture. It just can take over.
They make really beautiful, if you want a dried flower arrangement, now's the time to go out and pick some, and then spray it maybe with some hairspray or something so that it doesn't all fall apart. But they make beautiful dried flower arrangements or grass, just in different flower arrangements. They are really neat, and they are kind of neat in the wind because they kind of flutter and.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Ella, do you have another show and tell, or do you want to do
I
a
do.
question?
I do have another one. Again, sorry to be off camera there, but apples are so prevalent now. This is a Cortland, and my friend actually has been very successful grafting different apples to his one tree. He does that in the spring. We did it a number of years ago. So he had a Fuji, and we grafted Honeycrisp and Cortland to his tree. So that gave him an opportunity to, one, only have a single tree and have cross-pollination, but also have a variety of apples that you can harvest at different times, because apples, there's early apples, mid-season apples, and then really late apples. But Cortland is mostly known for its a beautiful white flesh, and that it makes a very good baking apple. So I just wanted to let our viewers know I got some apple pie spice here. It's actually a mixture of cinnamon, nutmeg, cardamom, allspice, cloves, a little bit of ginger and such. And you can get a recipe online to make your own, or you can buy it. But it's a wonderful spice for apple pie, where you don't have to measure out all the different spices, or applesauce. And so what we've been doing with these Cortlands is peeling them, coring them, and then just putting the pieces in a crock pot with some brown sugar and the apple pie spice. And you cook it on high for about an hour, and then drop it to low for another couple of hours. And the Cortland apple really becomes a wonderful applesauce. It breaks down naturally. You don't have to rice it, or you don't have to really chop it up. You can, just leave some quarters in there, and it cooks down. So I've been making some applesauce, mostly to freeze and for fresh eating, but you could can it as well.
They make it make really, like Ella said, they make really good sauce. Just kind of almost like the transparent. Only thing, these are later, and so
Mhm.
and I've been drying a lot of apples. I'm
Oh,
dehydrating, and so I've got Granny Smith, I've got Fuji, I've got um, Yellow Delicious, Red Delicious, Gala. Um,
Oh, wow.
I think I have 8 different varieties of apples, and they're all coming. And
Yes.
some of them are going to be later, but depending on what you want to do, if you sprinkle, if you're going to do some dehydration, if you sprinkle a little bit of that pumpkin spice powder on there or some cinnamon sugar before they dehydrate it, it'll stick on there and makes you don't need the sugar. If you just use the spice, it's better.
It
okay.
makes a little
All right.
treat.
Well, one thing to remember that if you do have walnuts and apples cannot grow in the same area. So that's why I really don't have any apple trees on my property, and I'm relying on apples from friends, just like zucchini and everything else. When it's apple season, there's lots of apples to share. And I went to a friend's house where we actually made cider. So she has a apple press, and it's really fun to make cider right now. And
Yes.
the different orchards, are having apple donuts and of course pumpkins, gourds. The winter squash are starting to mature now, so that'll be something that we'll be in the next couple of weeks harvesting to carry over the winter. So I
Yeah.
love apples.
It's that time of year. And I want to ask you, how far apart do the walnut and the apple trees have to be? Because we have a walnut tree in the front and we have 2 apple trees in the back, and both are produce. So I wonder if we're within the parameters of them being far enough apart. But what would you
Right.
guess?
It's mostly uh, the roots will
Roots.
secrete a chemical called juglone, which is antagonistic to the root hairs of the apple. So they
Gotcha.
cannot be within a root zone, or like
Like the drip
a
line, where
lot of,
usually it's a drip line.
yeah,
Gotcha.
the
Okay.
drip line. That sounds
Okay.
good. And
Okay.
it's the same way with tomatoes too.
Mhm.
I have a more difficult time with tomatoes, and choose to grow them in another area of the garden that is not near some walnut trees for the same
Interesting.
reason.
Interesting. Okay. Thank you. John, did you have one more item?
Yes, I do.
Okay, go for it. We've got
Being
a few minutes left.
it's September right now, and if this is one of my irises, and if you can look right in there, I don't know if it shows up real good, but I have root borers. You can see that
I
little
see.
hole
I
that's
can
in
see
there.
that little hole. Yes, we can
So
see it.
this one is, it's in this part right here. So this part is going to get broke off. This does not have any holes, so I can replant this. This gets put into the trash and I'm going to have to plant it in a different area. You want to now, August and September is the time to transplant your irises. The thing is, you don't want to plant, when you replant them, the soil should be just right at the top of the iris bulb. And you can cut some of these off if that's too. I like to leave a little bit of the leaf on, just as a handle, so to speak, and that way I can reposition in the soil. And just check the bottom. If you see pinholes in it, here's another one that has lots of holes in it. You can see.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so
So
this,
even though that's still got some life to it, you would not grow that.
I
You would
would
not
not grow
continue
this
that.
because I'm going to be able to see this last part again here. This does not have the holes in it. And a lot of times it'd be better just to cut this with a good knife or and just make a nice clean cut. This part now I can plant. This part here gets thrown in the garbage and then plant them in a different area. It's good to check about every 5 years or dig up your irises and thin them out. They'll bloom so much nicer. And so August, September is the time to replant your irises and check for those iris borers.
Gosh, it's so hard to believe it's time to start thinking about replanting and thinning out and moving things and closing beds and, plants sort of finishing giving fruit and vegetables. It
We're
feels like we
starting to
just
have
got
leaf
started.
drop already,
Yes,
and so
yes.
watch your, with the winds we've had, make sure that your leaves aren't blowing up against an area that's covering the grass, because then that'll smother out your grass. And so keep those leaves mulched and raked up and off of your grass. And mower works better. They're a wonderful mulch
Oh,
for your
yes.
flower beds if you can, but you want to mulch them with a mower or a shredder or something like that before you put on. You don't just want to, have them pack in.
Gotcha. All right, guys, we are out of time. It goes very quickly. So thank you both for coming on and sharing today. And thank you so much for watching. If you're interested in finding our past shows, you can always find us on YouTube, Instagram, and on Facebook. And we will see you next time. Good night.